Hello, everyone. Today in class, we're going to be talking about the origins of a certain famous... Oh, how do I describe it? The origins of a certain famous holiday magician. You may have heard him referred to as Santa Claus, Father Christmas, or many other names. But today, we will be engaging in a study of the magical properties of Santa Claus for curious young magicians with questions. So, of course, the first question is, who the heck was Santa Claus? Or did you mean St. Nicholas of Myra? Also, content warning here. We're going to be talking about some rather dastardly topics, so if you happen to have a, adverse reaction to child murder and forced prostitution, this might not be the presentation for you. So, you're probably wondering, Sir, this is a class on magic, right? Why are we talking about a saint from a religion? Well, he may have been a Christian bishop, but he was also Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Come to think of it, that's the second time we've encountered a magician with a religious following. He and many other early Christians straddle the line between priest and magician. So, before I talk of Santa's magic, I need to first mention Nicholas's piety. Mostly because it goes places. So let's talk about miracles. Nicholas traveled from Myra in modern-day Turkey to the Holy Land. The ship he was on was caught in a storm and nearly destroyed. He cast a spell to clear up the weather. And for that, they named him the patron saint of sailors, travelers, fishermen, and merchants. And then he found a butcher who kidnapped and murdered 3 children with the intent of selling their remains as hostages. Yeah, there's a reason why we have the content warning tonight. So, naturally, like any good magician, he resurrected them. Since this magic spell is also considered one of his miracles, you see it a lot in religious art. And thanks to some creative misinterpretation, that makes him the patron saint of children and brewers. The next funny little story about our supposed saint is... Well, I have to explain something very weird. You don't know what a Batowery is, do you? So, in this part of the world and this part of the timeline, it's required that women or their parents pay a fee to be married to their husbands. Sort of like a prepaid inheritance. And Nicholas finds 3 women whose father has been thrown into poverty. If they don't get married soon, they'll be sold into prostitution. And so he secretly shoves bags of gold through the window to their house, one each night. Each woman is married off the next day. On the 3rd night, he's discovered by the father, of whom Nicholas makes sure to promise not to tell anyone where the gold came from. Of course, that begs the question how we know where the gold came from. But you can see from these stories, we already see a little bit of Santa Claus in our little funny saint... What would you even call it? Story, I guess? Folklore? Side note for prospective priests. Some saints have special oil flowing from their burial place or relics. This is known as mirabilism. These oils of saints are inherently connected to the saints that excreted it. The oil itself is not magical, but it persuades the saint to intervene on the anointed's behalf. Also, sometimes the oil is just poured on the relics, or it's water instead of oil. But anyway, St. Nicholas is a mirabilitic saint, which means that St. Nicholas bathwater is a real thing that exists. I'm sorry, I just, a little bit of psychic damage never hurt anyone. Or perhaps you meant Sinterklaas. And... yes, we're going to have a second content warning because we are going to be talking about racism. So, you're probably wondering why I changed names here. Sinterklaas is just St. Nicholas in Dutch. They are the same person, but I'll refer to him with 2 names. For the purpose of this presentation, St. Nicholas is the religiously venerated wizard from Myra. Sinterklaas is the figure that is celebrated in the Netherlands. This is for reasons that will make sense shortly. So, because St. Nicholas is still technically a religious figure, he has a thing called a feast day. This is a very specific day where a saint is venerated in some way, and it does not usually involve the consumption of lots of food. Anyway, St. Nicholas's feast day is December 6th. Every country has a myriad of different Nicholas traditions, and the Netherlands decided to be very extra about it. In the Netherlands, Sinterklaas arrives on a boat from Spain, rides a white horse across the country, and hides presents in children's shoes. So you're probably getting, a little bit more of a hint, a little whiff of Santa Claus on that. But unfortunately, we regret to inform you that the duck is racist. Because the Netherlands also believe that Sinterklaas has a bunch of servants, all named Zwarte Piet or Black Pete, that abduct bad children and send them to Spain. These servants are canonically Moors, a term for people from North Africa. Technically, the Netherlands never colonized Morocco, and neither did Spain, but this distinction does not matter. Europeans of this era couldn't tell black people apart. Moor is a generic term. Today, Zwarte Piet just feels like a cruel reminder of Dutch colonial atrocities, or perhaps a racist stereotype. So, of course, there's attempts to fix it. How can we make, Black Pete? How can we make Black Pete, politically correct? Well, the answer is he's not African. He's just covered in soot from the chimneys he went down. Problem solved. Or worse, problem amplified. They changed Black Pete to Soda Pete with the explanation that he's just, covered in soot from the chimneys he goes down. Now, anyone who knows anything about American history, and that would include the vast majority of humanity, would know that America has a long and storied history of extremely racist minstrel shows in which white American actors covered their face in soot and made extremely racist performances of black people. So, because of this, it is considered very bad form for an actor to play a different race like that, even in less disrespectful contexts. So let this be clear. The Netherlands heard, "Isn't it kind of bad for Sinterklaas to have a black slave?" and responded with, "Actually, he's just doing blackface. It's fine." Side note for prospective naughty children: just because you don't live in the Netherlands does not mean that you are safe. If you live in Germany, Nicholas hired a farmhand named Rupert, or Knecht Rupert, to go around and ask all the children if they can pray. If they say no, they're hit with a bag of ashes. Hopefully not the same ashes that they're using for, what I just talked about. In Austria, Nicholas decided to try out some demon summoning, except the only thing he could summon was Krampus. He sends naughty children straight to hell. Krampus continued his reign of terror until the 1930s, when he was banned by an Austrian fascist that came to power before the Austrian fascist you're thinking of. Nicholas then went to France and found someone who'd murdered children for personal gain. Funny how this keeps happening. Pierre Fautard, or Father Flog, was then sentenced to go around whipping naughty children across France for his crimes. So, yeah. Do not mess with St. Nicholas. Or perhaps, did you mean Kris Kringle? Somehow, racist implications were not the thing that got Sinterklaas cancelled. In the 1510s, the Catholics were selling indulgences to fund the rebuilding of a church. This has made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move. Western Christianity has a schism: Catholics versus a bunch of Protestant priests. One might even call them Protestant. Martin Luther does not like saints. Christians worship a jealous God. Why do we have all these other totally not gods who have godlike powers in our religion? And so he invents the Christ child, or Kris Kringle, which in English gets corrupted to Kris Kringle as a replacement for St. Nicholas Day. He gives gifts on Christmas Eve, or December 24th. And yes, this is in fact how the whole gift-giving thing comes into play as a Christmas celebration. Did you mean Father Christmas? Completely separate from the Nicholas feast day, Sinterklaas are uncomfortable reminders of European colonialism. England personifies Christmas as Sir Christmas, Captain Christmas, and or Father Christmas. Anyway, the Puritans decided to cancel Christmas. While the Dutch and Germans were worried about idolatry, the Puritans just called it popery, i.e. just too Catholic. Opposing them were those who wanted their Christmas merrymaking back. Also, they were royalists. Cringe. Father Christmas is also known as Francis Pierre Noël. Father Christmas's attributes were a lot more flexible in the 18th and 19th centuries. Here we have the ghost of Christmas present, depicted as a drunk Christmas reveler in green. Rather scandalous. Christmas is a lot more wild than the sanitized version you see on TV. Father Christmas also got assigned a lot of popish attributes as a form of ridicule by the Protestants who wanted to cancel him. Things like his weight, age, white beard, etc. And of course, when you have, heavy-set old man and a white beard going around distributing presents, it's not that far off to just go straight to Santa Claus. And so in 1606, King James decided it'd be a good idea to do a colonialism. Funny how that keeps happening. He lets a bunch of Englishmen build cities in what is now Virginia. But wait, didn't the Dutch already colonize New Amsterdam? Well, too bad, we're calling it New York now. Also, it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. The Amish and Mennonites are fleeing Germany. They move to Pennsylvania. Americans call them the Pennsylvania Dutch because Germany is more of a vague concept at this point in time. It's... there's a whole fun story with that. Many centuries and one embarrassing British defeat later, America is now a country. But the most important question is, who gets to be America's official Christmas gift giver? Screw the rules, we'll make our own! Santa Claus was anglicized from Sinterklaas in the same way that Kris Kringle became Kris Kringle, because of America's competing Christmas traditions and the different immigrant backgrounds that they came from. Santa is referred to as Saint Nicholas, Father Christmas, and Kris Kringle simultaneously, despite being none of those men. Compared to Father Christmas, Santa Claus's outfit is always a red jacket, and he was first depicted as you would recognize him today in 1821, in the poem Old Santa Claus with Much Delight, which was also the first to describe him using a reindeer sleigh. Side note for prospective political cartoonists. Much of the public domain Santa art that's available was drawn by Thomas Nast. Thomas Nast was a prolific political cartoonist. He didn't quite invent the art form, but he's responsible for creating a lot of America's cultural iconography. He also took down a few corrupt New York politicians, even so far as his political cartoons being used to identify them when they fled the country. Also, he hated the Irish, which is pretty typical for the time period, except for the fact that he otherwise was very outspoken against racism. In fact, most of his hatred towards Irish people was at least partially motivated by him being sympathetic towards black people, which is very weird to say. In, 1870s, it's just like my Bioshock Infinite America. Much of what is known today about Santa Claus's origins come from a book written by L. Frank Baum. Santa is an abandoned baby who is discovered and adopted by the spirits of the forest and becomes a silk-gilled toy maker who gives toys to children. Then they're stolen by evil creatures called Aguas, and the king of the forest tries to get them to stop stealing Santa's presents. And then they have a goddamn war involving giants, goblins, demons, Chinese dragons, and all sorts of other fantasy creatures. And this all happens while Santa's off screen, somehow. Now, of course, because this is America, and America's a very silly place, we need to talk about that one time in 1955, in which a child intending to call Santa Claus misstyled and reached NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Ever since, the United States Air Force has maintained radar lock on Santa Claus around the clock as he travels through his assigned gift-giving regions in North America. The warrantless spying arm of the intelligence community, Google, has also used targeted advertising and browser cookies to track Santa, giving us an unparalleled level of accuracy that even compared to NORAD tracks Santa. For some reason, however, Santa Claus has yet to leverage ad tracking data to find out what kids are naughty or nice. It would be the only good thing ads have ever done. Alright, so now that we're past the whole origins of Santa Claus phase, we do need to talk about some honorable mentions, because, believe it or not, this is not the only gift-giving figure, or even family of gift-given figures, because we have to talk about the Yule Goat. The Yule Goat has roots in Northern European culture, extending further back than either Santa Claus or St. Nicholas. Of course, the goat too just became part of the general mythos, but originally the Yule Goat just delivered presents itself, like if Santa was a goat or something. Also, it might have been one of Thor's goats. I'm surprised no one's asked him about it. So he's not part of the legendary trio Christmas magicians per se, but he's also a gift giver, so I couldn't go on without mentioning him. And he is a protected gift-given tradition, so now we have to go on to some dishonorable mentions. Dead Moroz. Content warning, we're going to be talking about Russia. Dead Moroz, or Old Man Frost, has nothing to do with Christmas or Nicholas. He's related to the many, many other winter wizards and snow maidens that I had to cut for time. Believe me, if this was a presentation about the entire folklore motif of winter wizards, we'd be here all night. But boy howdy, did Dead Moroz take plenty of inspiration from Nicholas. I mean, he gives out gifts just like Santa Claus does. And that made him close enough to a Russian Santa Claus that the Soviets were willing to replace Nicholas folklore with Dead Moroz folklore in the Soviet Union. Well, at least after apologizing for declaring Dead Moroz a kulak. Also, he might be complicit in Russian war crimes. I'm not sure, but I found a picture of Dead Moroz shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. Okay, maybe you can be a Christmas tradition once Putin's 6 feet under. Slava Ukraini. Of course, if you go to Turkey, where this whole mess started, Turkish folklore also talks of Ayazata, a winter god that was created from cold weather. His traditional helper is his granddaughter, Karkiz, and Iran has Abu Noruz, who brings in the new year by delivering a bunch of presents and then coming home after his wife has already fallen asleep for the rest of the year. If he ever comes home early, the world ends. I don't even think I got them all. But we need to talk about Santa Claus in the modern world. So, what does Santa Claus do? Because, I mean, even for a wizard, giving gifts to billions of people is no small feat. Well, we'll start with letters. There's millions upon millions of them, and they're all delivered to Santa every year, and they all need to be opened and read. Only good children are allowed to receive gifts, and so Santa has a crack team of elves that brag about seeing you when you're sleeping and knowing when you're awake. In practice, Santa relies heavily on parental surveillance. Gifts are then procured or conjured as appropriate. Distribution of gifts is handled on a country-by-country basis. This is according to traditional gift-giving procedure as negotiated at the World Santa Claus Congress in Denmark. Countries not mentioned in the list below will be served by the nearest gift giver on a rotating basis. And don't worry if you wrote your letter to the wrong gift giver, relax, that's just who delivers the presents. I've always written letters to Santa Claus, even though I live in Wales, a Father Christmas country. The purpose of the regional delivery system is to protect each gift giver's territory from encroachment. Otherwise, Santa Claus would wind up delivering all the presents and the other gift givers would be forgotten. In a similar vein, you don't have to be a child to write a letter to Santa Claus. Santa's perfectly happy to read letters from well-behaved adults too. Side note for prospective wizards. Santa Claus is firmly a creature of the magical world. However, according to recent surveys, 42% of magicians and 47% of wizards do not believe in Santa Claus. It's kind of a faux pas in the magical realm to tell people your Santa beliefs. When I first enrolled at the Academy of Arcane Arts and Sciences at Cardiff, I was told in no uncertain terms, do not talk about Santa Claus. I am gonna break that taboo. Santa Claus exists, and I'm tired of pretending that he does not. I've talked with several magicians and wizards who don't believe in Santa Claus. Some of them are new to the magical world, and just thought a handful of folk heroes delivering presents at international scale was physically impossible. Who said that was a problem for us? We're wizards, damn it. If you're going to confront magic with science, at least make it interesting instead of just heckling magicians. And others were just lied to by egotistical parents who want to take credit for Santa's work. But hey, you know what? If you're not convinced, then fine. Ask Santa if he's real, to his face. Here's how to summon him. This ritual must be performed in front of a fireplace that connects to a chimney. Gather together bells, tinsel, mistletoe, stockings or boots, a glass of milk, and cookies, lovingly prepared in the same fashion as your grandmother's. Prepare a letter containing your deepest Yuletide desires, holding nothing back. Hang the tinsel above the fireplace with the mistletoe, bells, and stockings on it. Arrange the cookies on a plate in a suitable magical geometry, such that a glass of milk may be placed at the center. Burn the letter in the fireplace and say the words, "Great giver of gifts, I beseech thee for a miracle. For the spirit of Christmas, I devote my very soul. I offer thee milk, honey, and my true desire." If you perform the ritual correctly, Santa will appear to grant you your wish. I have done this once before, and I actually plan to do it again. In fact, by the time you're watching this, I will have already summoned Santa Claus and delivered my letter to him in person. Here is my open letter to Santa Claus. Dear Santa, I hope this letter finds you well. For Christmas this year, I require no gift, but your own physical presence. I have recently started a YouTube channel with the goal of educating the mundane world about the affairs and practices of the magical realm. While my own research has proved fruitful so far, I would like to show people other wizards aside from myself. That is why for Christmas, I would like to have a collab stream with you. If your schedule does not permit such a thing, I would request that you pass on this letter to Father Christmas or St. Nicholas. Thank you for your consideration, Arcturus Emrys Ir Olhomgar.